I always thought I knew myself. 40 years of living, of being a husband, a father, a man who understood his place in the world. But one ordinary Sunday morning revealed a part of me I had spent those 40 years ignoring. It started with 8 simple words. 8 words that slipped out of my mouth before I could stop them. 8 words that would change how my wife saw me, how my daughter saw me, and most terrifyingly, how I saw myself. And once I said those words, there was no taking them back. It was Sunday. The kind of Sunday that feels like permission. Permission to move slowly, to breathe deeply, to exist without urgency. I was in the kitchen, my hands wrapped around a warm mug of coffee, listening to the quiet hum of our home settling into the weekend. Then I heard it. Laughter. Bright, unguarded laughter, drifting from the bedroom down the hall. I followed the sound without thinking, drawn to it the way you're drawn to music you haven't heard in years but somehow remember. When I reached the doorway, I stopped. My wife Susan sat at her vanity, and our daughter Rebecca perched on the edge of the bed, both surrounded by an explosion of makeup brushes, palettes, and little bottles that caught the morning light. They were doing their makeup together, something they did often, something I'd witnessed 100 times before. But this time, something was different. I stood there watching them, and I felt something stir inside me. A tug. Warm and wistful and completely unfamiliar. It wasn't jealousy exactly. It was more like longing. Like watching people share a language you were never taught but desperately wanted to speak. They were laughing about eyeliner, debating lipstick shades, and there was this intimacy to it all. This tenderness, this permission to care about beauty, to play with it, to claim it without apology. And before I could stop myself, before I could think it through or talk myself out of it, the words tumbled out. Why is it only mother and daughter who get to look beautiful? I think it's my turn today. The room went silent. Rebecca's head snapped toward me, her eyes wide with surprise. Susan turned slowly, her mascara wand frozen midair. And me? I stood there, terrified by my own honesty, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. I didn't even know I truly meant it, until the room went silent. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The air felt thick, heavy with possibility and uncertainty. Then Rebecca's face broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. She practically launched herself off the bed, scrambling toward her room, with the kind of enthusiasm that only a teenager can summon. "I'll get my makeup kit," she shouted, and I heard her footsteps thundering down the hall. But Susan stayed. She rose from her vanity and walked toward me slowly, studying my face the way she does when she's trying to read beneath the surface. When she reached me, she didn't say anything at first. She just looked at me, really looked at me, and I felt completely exposed. "Do you really want to do this?" she asked quietly. It was such a simple question, but in that moment, it felt enormous. Because it wasn't just about makeup. It was about everything that question implied. Everything it might mean. Everything it might change. I could have laughed it off, could have said I was joking, could have retreated back into the safety of who I'd always been. But I didn't. "Yes," I said. And I meant it. I surprised myself with how much I meant it. Standing there in our bedroom doorway, I realized how rare it was for me to choose something just for myself. Not for my job, not for my family, not to fulfill some role or expectation, just for me. Because some hidden part of me wanted it. The excitement came first, rushing through my chest like adrenaline, but right behind it came the fear. Fear of judgment, fear of what this might mean, fear of opening a door I didn't know how to close. I didn't know it yet, but saying yes opened a door I could never close again. But the moment didn't stop there. It deepened. Rebecca returned like a whirlwind, her makeup kit clutched in both hands, her face lit with pure joy. She set everything up on the bed with the kind of focus I'd only seen when she was working on something she truly cared about. "Okay, Dad," she said, patting the space beside her. "Sit." I sat. Susan stood nearby, watching with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not disapproving, not mocking, just observing, studying this moment the way you study something you've never seen before. Rebecca started with foundation, and I was immediately struck by how gentle she was. Her fingers moved across my face with such care, such softness. I closed my eyes and let myself feel it. The cool cream smoothing over my skin, her concentration, the strange intimacy of being touched this way. "You have good skin, Dad," she murmured, more to herself than to me. There was something soft in Rebecca's eyes, something like pride. As if she'd been waiting for me to finally show this part of myself. I felt seen. Not as a father, not as a husband, just seen as a person who existed beyond the roles I'd been playing. She moved on to blush, brushing color onto my cheeks with careful precision. Then eyeliner, a thin line that she applied with the steady hand of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. With each stroke, each dab of color, I felt something shifting inside me. It wasn't the makeup itself, it was what the makeup represented. Permission. Permission to care about beauty. Permission to explore something I'd been taught was not for me. Why did this feel so natural? And why did a part of me feel relieved? Rebecca stepped back, admiring her work. She grabbed a lipstick, something bold, something I never would have chosen, and carefully painted it across my lips. "There," she said, smiling. "Perfect." I started to stand, thinking we were done, thinking this was the end of the experiment. But then Rebecca's eyes lit up with mischief. "Okay, now the outfit." I froze. I thought we were done. What came next pushed the moment even further. Rebecca disappeared again, and this time when she returned, she was holding something that made my breath catch. A dress. Not just any dress. A sparkly, form-fitting red halter-neck dress that seemed to shimmer with every slight movement. The fabric was covered in tiny glitter-like sparkles that caught the morning light streaming through the window. It had a gathered neckline that created a crisscross knot design at the collarbone, and the silhouette, sleek, elegant, was designed to hug every curve. It was stunning. Glamorous. Bold in a way that made my heart race. "Rebecca, I don't think—" "Try it on," she said, her voice soft but insistent. "Please?" Every instinct in my body screamed to run, to laugh this off, to retreat back into the safety of my usual Sunday sweatpants and t-shirt. This was going too far. This was crossing a line I didn't know how to uncross. But another part of me, a quieter, deeper part, wanted to try it, desperately wanted to try it. Susan must have seen the war happening on my face because she stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You don't have to," she said. "But if you want to, we're right here." I looked at the dress, at my daughter's hopeful face, at my wife's steady, calm presence, and I chose myself again. They helped me into it, guiding my arms through, adjusting the fabric around my shoulders. The dress was heavier than I expected, substantial. The halter neckline felt strange against my neck, and the fitted silhouette hugged my body in ways I'd never experienced. There was a thigh-high slit on the left side that made me feel vulnerable and powerful at the same time. And then came the shoes. Nude, open-toe heels with thin ankle straps, and a simple, elegant stiletto. My legs shook as I stood in them, wobbling slightly until Susan steadied me. "Small steps," she whispered. "You've got this." The shimmer of the dress caught every movement. The slit revealed my leg with each step. Everything about this moment made my heart pound so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. Rebecca adjusted the neckline one final time, making sure the crisscross knot sat perfectly at my collarbone. And when they turned me toward the mirror, everything I thought I knew about myself shattered. My breath caught. The energy in the room shifted again. A tiny voice inside me whispered, "What if they regret seeing me like this?" I don't know what I expected to see. It was like meeting a stranger who somehow felt familiar. Maybe something ridiculous. Maybe something uncomfortable. Maybe a joke that had gone too far. But that's not what I saw. The person staring back at me from that mirror was beautiful. Not in a conventional way, not in a way that fit any of the boxes I'd been taught to check, but beautiful in a way that felt honest, raw, real. The red dress caught the light with every breath I took. The makeup brought out features I'd never paid attention to. And my eyes looked different. Softer, more present, more alive. I expected to laugh, to cringe, to break the tension with some self-deprecating comment. But instead, I felt a rush of recognition, like I was seeing someone I'd known my whole life but had never been allowed to meet. "Dad," Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. "You look beautiful." I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight. Susan stepped beside me, catching my eyes in the mirror's reflection. "You look like someone who finally allowed themselves to be seen," she said quietly, and something inside me broke open. Not in a painful way, in a healing way, like a dam that had been holding back decades of pressure suddenly giving way. A part of me felt healed. Another part felt terrified of what this might mean, about who I was, about what I'd been denying, about what came next. But overwhelmingly, beneath the fear and the confusion and the whirlwind of emotions, I felt peace. I thought the moment would end there. Thought we'd take off the dress, wash off the makeup, and return to our regular Sunday. But something else happened that I'll never forget. I braced myself for the aftermath. For awkwardness, for second-guessing, for that uncomfortable moment when everyone pretends nothing strange just happened. But that's not what came. Instead, My family surrounded me with joy. Rebecca was already pulling out her phone. "Can I take a picture? Just for us. Something we can remember." Susan was adjusting my posture, her hands gentle on my shoulders, guiding me to stand straighter, not with criticism, with pride. "Chin up a little," she murmured. "Own it." And I did. They didn't treat me like I was playing dress up or having some kind of breakdown. They treated me like someone who had finally shown them a truth they'd been waiting to see. Rebecca took the photo, and when she showed it to me, I barely recognized the person in the image, but in the best possible way. That person looked free. Susan squeezed my hand. "How does it feel?" she asked. I struggled to find the words. Like I've been holding my breath for 40 years and just now remembered how to exhale. For the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel like a role. Not a father, not a husband, not a man trying to fit into a box that never quite felt right. I felt like a person, whole, complete, allowed. But the real transformation wasn't what they saw on my face. It was what I finally saw inside myself. The truth is, I'd been ignoring a part of myself for decades. I'd spent my whole life following the rules of a version of manhood that never fit me. Not because I chose it, but because it was the only script I knew. Beauty, softness, and self-expression were doors I was taught not to open. But standing there in that red dress, I felt those doors swing wide for the first time. And instead of fear, I felt relief. It felt like reclaiming a missing piece. This wasn't about becoming someone new. It wasn't about rejecting who I'd been or the life I'd built. It was about meeting a part of myself I'd never had space to acknowledge. I thought beauty was something you earned, something you achieved through the right genetics, the right gender, the right performance. But that day taught me something different. Beauty is something you're allowed to choose. It's not a reward, it's not a destination, it's a permission slip you write for yourself. And for 40 years, I'd been waiting for someone else to write it for me. But that Sunday morning, surrounded by sparkles and makeup brushes and the people who loved me most, I finally picked up the pen. Beauty has no gender. It belongs to anyone brave enough to claim it. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the most courageous thing a person can offer. And identity. Identity is not a fixed label. It's a journey, a slow unfolding. We all have pieces of ourselves waiting for permission to exist. Sometimes, all it takes is one moment of honesty and the right people beside you to finally let those pieces breathe. I'm still learning who I am, still discovering what it means to live without the boxes, without the walls, without the fear of being seen. But I'm no longer waiting for permission. And neither should you. Those 8 simple words didn't just change how my family saw me, they changed how I finally saw myself. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched something in you, I hope you'll come back. Subscribe, turn on notifications. Let's walk this path of growth and healing and becoming together. Because here's what I know now. Every story of transformation starts with a single moment of truth. And your moment is waiting for you. Be gentle with your steps. Be bold with your becoming. And remember, every ending is the beginning of another story. The end.
The Gender Diary exists to light that path with shared stories. Whether you found connection in this narrative, you're on your own journey of gender exploration, or you're here seeking understanding, your subscription fuels our mission. Every subscriber empowers us to keep illuminating these authentic experiences for our community. Kindly drop a comment below. Your voice adds to the tapestry of experiences that makes this space meaningful. Until our next story unfolds.